Chapter 7. Into the Viridian Forest. Well, here we are. Viridian Forest, Ash announced. The group was now standing at the entrance to a large forest. Viridian City was a few miles behind them. It was now late in the afternoon, and the group wanted to go ahead and trek through as much of the forest as they could before dark. However, Ash was the only one of the group who seemed to be actually looking forward to navigating the forest. Do we really have to go in there? Misty asked in a worried tone. Of course. You said it yourself, Misty. Serena and I need to capture more Pokemon to become stronger. I'm certain there are some great bug Pokemon in there for us to capture, Ash replied. Bug Pokemon? Misty asked and began trembling. Misty, you aren't afraid to go in the forest, are you? I mean, we have to go through there to get to Pewter City anyway, Ash tried to reason. It isn't the forest itself, it's the... Misty trailed. Well, if you don't want to go in the forest, that's fine. Serena, Pikachu, and I can just leave you here. Are you guys ready? Ash asked them. Pikachu immediately responded with a Pika-Pee and hopped onto Ash's shoulder. Serena, on the other hand, hesitated for a moment. She wasn't sure she wanted to go through such a thick forest at the moment. But Ash did have a point. There were probably more Pokemon in there to catch, and it was the quickest way to Pewter City. Seeing the look on Serena's face, Ash gave her a reassuring smile. Hey, don't worry. Remember the promise we made to look out for each other. You have Charla, Pikachu, and me to look after you. We'll make sure nothing happens to you, he said. After hearing those words, Serena felt much better and smiled back at Ash. You're right, Ash. Let's go, she said as they began walking into the forest. Misty moaned as she watched them go. What do I do? What do I do? Hey, wait for me, she called. She then hurried after them into the Viridian Forest. The group had been walking through Viridian Forest for about 25 minutes, with Misty trailing a few paces behind Ash and Serena. It had been pretty uneventful. Despite that, Misty kept muttering to herself how she hated forests like this. It was beginning to wear on everyone else's nerves, particularly because Misty refused to say why she hated the forest. Ash leaned over to Serena and whispered, Do you think if we suddenly break out and do a run and make several turns that we would be able to lose her? Serena giggled, but then sighed nonetheless. It doesn't seem likely. She would find us sooner or later anyway, and then we wouldn't hear the end of it. Misty must have a tracking system inside of her, considering how she always seems to find us, she replied. Yeah, but her whining is beginning to drive me crazy, Ash whispered again. He then looked over to Pikachu, who had a deadpan expression on its face, and its ear kept twitching. Ash could tell Misty's complaining wasn't exactly pleasant to Pikachu either. Hey, what are you two whispering about up there? Misty suddenly spoke. It's nothing, Misty, Ash replied without looking back. Well, I for one am getting tired of walking for now. I say we take a break for a bit, Misty said while folding her arms over her chest. Ash and Serena sighed. Fine, Ash responded, but then lowered his voice only for Serena and Pikachu to hear. If only for you to be quiet for a moment. The group then stopped and sat down on the ground. Ash figured since they were taking a break, he might as well have another snack. They had a big breakfast at the Pokemon Center earlier, but it was times like this Ash wished someone in the group was a great cook for when they weren't in civilization. Cooking just wasn't his, Serena's, or Misty's specialty, so they had to rely on things like sandwiches or bags of chips for food. It was a little inconvenient, but such was the life of living away from home now. Serena decided she should release Charla since it hadn't been outside of its Pokeball since Viridian City. Come on, Charla, she said as she pushed the button on the Pokeball to release her Pokemon. Charla appeared from the beam of light and looked up at its trainer. Are you hungry yet, Charla? Serena asked. Sure. It replied and nodded its head. Serena smiled. Well, lucky for you, I bought some Pokemon food while we were in Viridian City. Would you like to try some? Charmander! It replied eagerly. Here you go, Serena said as she handed the food to the Pokemon. Charla grabbed the food and began to eat, but then stopped. It got a disgusted look on its face and forcibly swallowed. Serena gasped. Oh no! Did you not like the flavor? Charla shook its head back and forth. Misty sighed. Pokemon have their own tastes too, you know. They aren't going to eat anything you give them, she said. Right. I'm sorry, Charla. I'll make sure to ask your opinion on food from now on, Serena said apologetically. Ash pulled some food from his backpack also and turned to Pikachu. How about you, Pikachu? Would you like to try some Pokemon food I bought for you? He asked. Pikachu shrugged. It was pretty indifferent to the taste of Pokemon food. It was all pretty mediocre to the awesomeness in a bottle that was ketchup. If the group could meet someone like a Pokemon breeder who knew how to make Pokemon food and then made it ketchup flavored, Pikachu would feel like it was in paradise. Ash smiled sympathetically. Yeah, I know it's probably not the best quality, buddy, but you do have to eat something. I'll make sure to buy some food in Pewter City to put on your food. Pikachu then nodded and began to nibble on the food. It would just have to bear it until then. Misty unzipped her bag and took out a cheese sandwich she had made before they left the Pokemon Center. She was about to take a bite when she felt something nudge against her leg. Thinking it was Charla or Pikachu, Misty smiled and said, "Oh, would one of you like a bite of my sandwich? Here you go." She then broke off a small piece of her sandwich and turned, only to find it wasn't Charla or Pikachu that wasn't against her leg. It was a small caterpillar Pokemon. It was light green in color and had a yellow underside. It had large black eyes and a pink antenna on its forehead. The Pokemon was Caterpie. It was looking up at Misty expectantly. Misty froze and stared in horror at the Caterpie that was against her leg. She began to tremble violently, dropping her sandwich, and let out a scream loud enough to break the sound barrier. The scream alarmed the rest of the group, who immediately quit what they were doing to see what could cause such a scream from Misty. Misty, what's wrong? Are you hurt? Were you mugged? Ash asked with worry as he and Serena went over to her. It's that thing. It touched me. Gross, 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 Misty shrieked. What did? Cried Serena. That bug. Misty shrieked again, pointing at the Caterpie, who was looking at Misty in confusion. Oh, a Caterpie! Cool! Ash said as he and Serena pulled out their Pokedexes to scan it. Caterpie, the worm Pokemon. Its short feet are tipped with suction pads, which enable it to tirelessly climb slopes and walls, the Pokedex said. So you screamed just because a Caterpie touched you? Serena asked while giving Misty a deadpan look. Bugs are disgusting. Bugs are gross. I hate them, Misty cried. This little guy won't hurt anyone, Ash said. It was just then something occurred to him. Wait a second, Misty. Are you afraid of bugs? Is that why you were so hesitant to come into the forest? Fine, I admit it. I hate bugs. They disgust me, Misty shouted. You're being ridiculous, Misty. Caterpie isn't going to hurt you. It seems really nice. In fact, I'm gonna catch it, Ash stated. What? Misty cried. Ash then pulled out a spare Pokeball from his belt and turned his hat back. Pokeball, go! He yelled as he threw the Pokeball forward. The Pokeball soared through the air and connected with Caterpie, which was sucked into the ball. The Pokeball landed on the ground and began to shake. Ash and the others watched in anticipation for the catch to be complete. Come on, Ash said to himself. The tension was killing him. The ball finally stopped shaking and dinged to signal Caterpie had been captured. Ash's face immediately broke out into a grin. He couldn't contain his excitement. All right, I caught my first Pokemon! Yes! He cheered, pumping his fist into the air. Pikachu! Pikachu said, holding out its fingers in a V shape. Serena was so happy for Ash since he caught his first Pokemon. Now, all she had to do was catch one herself, and they would be in good shape. Congratulations, Ash, she said happily. Thanks, Serena. Ash replied before going over to the Pokeball. He then picked it up and kneeled down to show it to Pikachu and Charla. Check it out, guys. We made a new Pokemon friend for you to play with. The Pokemon smiled and nodded their heads to show their approval. Wait, where did Misty go? Serena asked. Ash looked, and sure enough, the space that Misty was occupying a moment before was now vacant. They then looked around and spotted her hiding behind a tree with only a small part of her head peeking out. Ash went over to her. Come on now, Misty. You aren't scared of an itty-bitty Caterpie, are you? He asked in a teasing tone and showed the Pokeball to Misty. Misty then recoiled. "Ew, get away from me," she yelled. Ash then sighed. "You can at least be happy for me. I just caught my first Pokemon and all you're doing is screaming." He muttered with the hint of disgust in his voice. "I'm glad you caught a Pokemon, but why did it have to be a bug of all things? I can't stand bugs," Misty yelled again. "Yeah, you made that very clear, Misty," Serena said in an annoyed tone as she joined Ash and Misty. "Personally, I think Caterpie is adorable, Ash." Ash smiled back at Serena. "Thanks, Serena. Hopefully you can catch yourself a bug Pokemon soon as well," Ash said. "Oh, how lovely," Misty mumbled sarcastically. Ash and Serena ignored that comment. "Hey, you know what? We haven't properly met Caterpie yet. Let's introduce ourselves," Ash suggested. Misty got a look of disgust on her face. "Oh no. Does that mean—" "Yep, come on out, Caterpie," Ash called as he opened his Pokeball, which released Caterpie. Misty screamed as she ran back several yards. Caterpie stared around at its surroundings in wonder before settling its eyes on Ash. Ash knelt down and said, "Hi there, Caterpie. My name's Ash. It's nice to meet you. We're gonna have many great adventures together." Caterpie gave the equivalent of a smile and nodded its head. "You are really cute, Caterpie," Serena said as she knelt down also. She then reached over and began to pet it. Caterpie cooed while Serena was petting it. Its eyes then landed on Misty a short distance away. It then charged forward straight at Misty. Misty screamed as Caterpie reached her. It then began to rub against Misty's leg affectionately, which caused her to scream more. "See, Misty? Caterpie is really nice, and it even likes you. You should give it a chance and become friends with it," Ash told her. "No way! I could never be friends with such a creepy bug," Misty exclaimed, jumping away from Caterpie, saddening it and making its eyes water. "I'll tell you what, you and Serena can be friends with Caterpie, and I'll be friends with Pikachu and Charla," she said. "That isn't going to work. We're all going to be traveling together, and so we should all be friends and get along, even you and Caterpie," Ash said a little sternly. Misty then looked down and saw Caterpie rubbing against her leg. She let out another mighty scream and ran a short distance away. Ash then got an angry look on his face. "I can't believe you, Misty. Caterpie has been nothing but nice to you and you're treating it like dirt." "I can't help that I don't like bugs, Ash," Misty shouted. "Bugs are one of the 3 most disgusting things in the world." "Besides you, what's the other one?" Ash retorted. "I hate carrots, beets, and bugs. Everyone has something they don't like," Misty stated. Ash then stuck his tongue out at her. "Oh yeah? Well, I like carrots and beets and bugs. What I don't like is the way you're hurting Caterpie's feelings with your silly fear of bugs," he fired back. He then looked and saw Caterpie slowly crawling off with an upset look on its face. "Hey Caterpie, where are you going?" Ash asked. Caterpie went to its Pokeball, pressed the button with its nose, and allowed itself back in the ball. Ash then turned to glare at Misty. "Now look what you've done. I don't know how you expect to keep traveling with us if you're going to insult my Pokemon. Let's go, Serena and Pikachu," he said as he went to grab Caterpie's ball. He then picked it up and began to walk off. Pikachu joined Ash and jumped onto his right shoulder. "Hey, you can't leave me here. What about my bike?" Misty called after them. Serena rolled her eyes. Misty was still carrying on about her bike. "We told you we'd pay you back for your bike, didn't we? And we will. You don't need to follow us around. We have your number so we can call you anytime. We have the money," Ash replied back. Misty watched them walk off with a look of anger, but it quickly turned to a look of regret. It was true she thought bugs were incredibly disgusting, but maybe she was overreacting. Caterpie was, after all, certainly not trying to hurt her. It was just being friendly. Maybe she could at least try to be nice to it. As long as it didn't touch her, that is. "Is Misty still following us?" Serena asked as she, Ash, and their Pokemon continued to walk along the forest path. Ash turned around to see Misty walking several yards back and sighed. "Yeah, when will she get the message that we really don't want her with us right now? We don't need insensitive bug haters on our team." Misty happened to hear that comment, and it did sting a little bit. These kids did owe her a bike, but she could still try to be a little nicer to them. While they weren't fighting like when they were together to defend against Team Rocket, they could all get along pretty well. Maybe she could lighten up a little bit. "Hey, wait up!" Misty called as she ran forward to catch up. "Just keep walking, guys," Ash muttered. "Wait!" Misty called again once she reached the group. "Yes," Ash sighed. "I wanted to say I was sorry. I still think bugs are gross, but you're right. Caterpie was just being nice. I'll at least be nice back to it," Misty said. "In that case, I would like you to apologize to Caterpie face to face," Ash said while stopping. He then took out Caterpie's Pokeball and released Caterpie. Caterpie looked curious to see what Ash needed. When it saw Misty, it immediately got a sad look on its face and looked down at the ground. Misty stared at Caterpie fearfully for a moment before taking a deep breath and kneeling down. "Hey, Caterpie, I'm sorry about the way I treated you earlier. It's just that I have a fear of bugs, but I shouldn't have taken it out on you," she said apologetically. "Now I want you to give it a small rub on the head," Ash told her. Do I have to?" Misty asked nervously. "Go on, Misty," Serena urged. Misty then gave a small gulp and very slowly reached out her hand to pet Caterpie. It was looking up at her expectantly. "Get over yourself, Misty. Caterpie isn't going to hurt you," she thought as she took another deep breath and gently placed her hand on Caterpie's head and began rubbing her head back and forth. Caterpie made a delightful chirp as Misty continued to rub its head. Ash and Serena smiled at the scene before them. "See, Misty? Isn't it so much easier when we all get along?" Ash asked. "Yeah, it is," Misty replied. It was now nighttime in Viridian Forest. The group had already eaten a small supper of sandwiches and were now getting ready for bed. Everyone had already stepped away to change into their pajamas. Caterpie was staring at the moon. It was full and gave off a nice glow to the forest air after the campfire was put out. Ash gave a huge yawn as he got into his sleeping bag. He then turned to Pikachu, who had curled up on the side of his pillow. "It was a good day today, huh, Pikachu? We made a new friend today. Now we're gonna capture more Pokemon and win the Pokemon League." "Pika!" it agreed. Serena pulled out her sleeping bag and set it down next to Ash on his right. She then got into it herself. Charla lay down next to Serena, but made sure its fiery tail was away from her. Misty pulled hers out and set it down next to Serena and likewise got into it. "I've had a pretty tiring day. I'm gonna go ahead and go to sleep. Good night," she said as she lay her head down on her pillow and closed her eyes. "It's no surprise you're tired with all that screaming you did today," Serena thought, but kept it to herself. She then turned to where Ash was laying. She couldn't tell if he still had his eyes open in the dark, but decided he was still awake. "Hey Ash, we sure had an eventful day today, didn't we?" she whispered. "Yeah, we did," he answered, confirming he was still awake. "We had the first battles at the Battle Chateau, I captured my first Pokemon, and now we're sleeping outside on a beautiful clear night." "Speaking of the Battle Chateau, I thought it was pretty fun. It's like a Pokemon tournament itself before you're rising to the top. The gym challenge has never interested me much, but at the Battle Chateau, I got to dress up and receive ranks on how well I do. I think I'm going to continue doing it while we're traveling." "That's great that you found something you wanted to do for a while," Ash whispered happily. "I'm behind you all the way. I know you can win it." "Do you really think so, Ash?" Serena asked. "I really do, Duchess Serena," Ash smiled. "Thanks, Ash. I have no doubt you can win the Pokemon League also," Serena said, smiling back. "Yeah, we're going to be known all throughout the whole region. The Pokemon Master Couple. Ash Ketchum and Serena Gabina," Ash declared. Serena blushed at the choice of words Ash used. Ash and her, a couple. She then let out a small giggle. "That sounds great, Ash. Let's do it," she confirmed. Ash gave another yawn. "Yeah, well, good night, Serena," he said. He then shifted a little in his sleeping bag to get more comfortable. He then whispered, "Good night," to Pikachu and closed his eyes to sleep. Serena couldn't see Ash in the dark, but could hear his light breathing as he fell asleep. "He sounds so peaceful when he sleeps. It's so cute," Serena thought. For all the small quirks Ash had, at the end of the day, Serena didn't care. All she knew was Ash was the nicest boy she has ever known, and she cared about him a lot. And he has shown several times that he cares for her a lot as well. She hoped that one day Ash will realize her feelings for him and return them as well. She smiled at the thought of them together as a couple. It was that thought alone that brought peace to her mind despite the busy day she had. She was asleep as well within a few minutes. Meanwhile, Pikachu had opened his eyes slightly and noticed Caterpie was still looking up at the moon. It had a longing expression on its face. Deciding to go see what was on the Pokemon's mind, Pikachu quickly slipped off the side of Ash's pillow. This got Charla's attention as it saw Pikachu walk by it. Charla got up also, and together with Pikachu joined Caterpie. "What are you still doing up?" Pikachu asked. "I can't sleep. I have too much on my mind," Caterpie replied. "What are you thinking about?" Charla inquired. "It's my dream to become a Butterfree one day, but I'm so weak, I don't think I can do it," Caterpie replied. "I know how you feel. I can't stop thinking about what it must be like to fly high above in the sky as a Charizard," Charla said, as she then gushes, "Not to mention what it would be like to have a boyfriend to fly along in the sky with." "Yeah, flying must be a great feeling," Pikachu agreed. "But I know you both will fly someday. You should follow your dreams no matter what." "I don't know. I can't do anything useful except tackle and string shot. What could I possibly beat to gain experience in battle?" Caterpie said dejectedly. Pikachu gave Caterpie a reassuring pat on the back. "It's okay. I know you can do it. Ash is a great person. He'll make sure you become a Butterfree no matter what," it said. Pikachu then added in, "You're also a great and friendly Pokemon yourself. Even Misty is being nice to you now." "Thanks. I feel a bit better now. I think I'm gonna go to sleep," Caterpie said. It then crawled away from the group and snuggled up to Ash's sleeping bag. "Caterpie is so nice. I hope it finds its soulmate one day," Charla said. "It will. I know Ash won't let it down," Pikachu replied. The group woke the next morning to the sound of cooing. They groggily opened their eyes and noticed a Pokemon a short distance away from them. It was pecking at the ground, apparently looking for breakfast. "Oh, a Pidgeotto!" Ash exclaimed, now fully awake. He then pulled out his Pokedex to scan it. "Pidgeotto, the bird Pokemon in the evolved form of Pidgey. Unlike the gentle Pidgey, Pidgeotto can be dangerous. Approach with extreme caution," the Pokedex said in its monotone voice. "I think I'm going to catch it," Ash stated. He knew Pidgeotto was not going to go down without a fight, so he didn't even attempt to throw a Pokeball at it yet. "What are you going to use to battle Pidgeotto?" Serena questioned as she gave a stretch. She wasn't quite awake yet. "I'm gonna use Pikachu, of course. There's no way I'm going to have Caterpie battle against a bird," Ash replied. He then returned Caterpie to its Pokeball to get it out of harm's way and faced Pidgeotto. "You're up, Pikachu," Ash said. Pikachu then ran forward and stood in front of Pidgeotto. This got Pidgeotto's attention. It gave Pikachu an intimidating look to try and get it to back down. Serena and Misty went over to stand beside Ash and watch. Ash took a deep breath. This was his first time to battle a wild Pokemon and capture it. He could do this. Flying types like Pidgeotto were weak against electric types like Pikachu, so he had an advantage. "Pikachu, try a Thundershock attack," Ash called. Pikachu obeyed and launched the attack from its cheeks at Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto took flight into the air and dodged the electricity with ease. "Pichaw!" It cried before flapping its wings and created a gust of wind which knocked Pikachu back into a tree. It then fell to the ground on its stomach. "Are you okay, Pikachu?" Ash asked Pikachu. "Pika!" It cried and jumped back to its feet, signaling it had plenty of fight in it. "Awesome! Try another Thundershock!" Ash ordered. Pidgeotto swooped back down to give a wing attack to Pikachu. Pikachu charged up its cheeks and released its attack. Pidgeotto used agility and dodged the attack again. "It's no good, Ash. Pidgeotto is too quick," Misty said. "Right," Ash said to himself. It seemed the only way Pikachu could hit Pidgeotto was at close range. "Pikachu, stay where you are and wait for Pidgeotto to come back down," he called. Pikachu nodded its head and stood its ground. Pidgeotto circled around and then dove straight down again right at Pikachu. "Wait for it a little longer, Pikachu," Ash said. Pikachu nodded. It trusted its trainer's judgment. Pidgeotto continued to get closer and closer. Pikachu still stood where it was, its eyes locked with an intense stare at Pidgeotto. Then, at the last second, Ash made his move. Pikachu, jump onto Pidgeotto's back, Ash ordered. Pikachu nodded and unleashed the attack, completely shocking Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto cried out from the pain and began to fall to the ground. Pikachu then leaped off Pidgeotto and began falling also. Ash ran over to catch Pikachu and smiled at it. "You were awesome," he praised. Ash then looked over to see Pidgeotto fall onto the ground. It then struggled to get back up. "Alright, here we go," Ash said as he set Pikachu down. He then turned his hat backwards and reached for a spare Pokeball. "Pokeball, go!" he cried as he threw it. The Pokeball made a direct hit with its target and sucked Pidgeotto inside. The ball landed on the ground and shook back and forth violently. Pidgeotto was clearly putting up more of a fight than Caterpie was. After about 10 seconds, the Pokeball finally dinged. Pidgeotto had been captured successfully. "Yeah! We caught Pidgeotto!" Ash cried out in joy. He had already captured another Pokemon one day after his last. He was on a roll and was really excited. He then went and showed everyone. "Check it out, guys! The first Pokemon I had to battle the capture. How did I do?" he asked. "You did great, Ash. I'm so proud of you," Serena replied happily. "Yeah, you actually did really well, Ash. Congratulations," Misty praised. Ash smiled. Misty finally had approved of something he did. "Now, not to be rude, but can we please hurry up and get a move on? I would like to get out of this forest as soon as possible," Misty suggested. Ash nodded. "Alright, we can go now. But we need to make sure Serena can capture a Pokemon soon as well," Ash said while motioning to Serena. The group nodded and was about to continue on their way when they heard voices close by. "We've been wandering around in this forest for 2 days now. I thought you said you knew where the exit was, Jesse," one voice said. "I do, James. I just think the scenery is so beautiful. We should take the scenic route," another voice retorted. "Meowth! Just admit that we're lost and that you don't have a clue where you're going," a third voice said in an annoyed tone. The group froze. They knew those voices. It couldn't be them again already. Could it? "Let's just try to avoid them if we can," Ash whispered, and the rest of the group nodded. "Hey, did you hear another voice? There is someone else close by. Maybe they can show us the way out," one of the voices suggested eagerly. The group of trainers were fixing to make a run for it, but wasn't quick enough. About 5 seconds later, they saw a certain trio emerge from the trees, and they looked extremely dirty and tired. It was Team Rocket from the Pokemon Center. "Thank goodness we found someone else here. Can you tell?" James began, but stopped himself when he saw who it was. Team Rocket immediately composed themselves and got a serious look on their faces. "I mean, of course we found you here," James finished. They then began their motto: "To protect the world from devastation, to unite all people within our nation, to denounce the evils of truth and love, to extend our reach to the stars above. Jesse, James, Team Rocket, blast off at the speed of light. Surrender now or prepare to fight. Meow, that's right." "Are you 3 lost? Because if you are, the exit's that way," Serena said while pointing behind them, hoping to avoid a conflict. "We are not lost and we don't need your help," Jesse retorted angrily. "We're only in this forest in the first place because you 3 sent us here the other night after the explosion. Look, we don't really want to fight anyone. We just want to continue on our way. Can we just go our separate ways and hopefully never see each other again?" Ash asked hopefully. "Normally we wouldn't waste our time with kids such as yourselves, but you humiliated us so badly at the Pokemon Center that we're going to take revenge on you. We're going to beat you to a pulp and then steal your Pokemon," Jessie said as she reached for her Pokeball. James doing the same. Meowth then extended his claws. "Go Ekans! Go Coughing!" Ash sighed. "I guess we don't have a choice. You're up, Pikachu," he said. "Go Charmander!" Serena cried, releasing her Pokemon. "Misty calls, Staryu!" Misty said, releasing hers as well. "Huh, you think your little Pokemon can beat ours? We're more prepared this time. Coughing, use Sludge Attack," James ordered. Coughing then shot a thick black sludge from its mouth straight at Pikachu. The sludge hit Pikachu right in the face. It couldn't see. "Cha!" Pikachu cried as it tried to wipe the sludge from its face. "Hey, that was really low." Ash said and angered the Team Rocket. "We aren't battling to play fair, you twerp," James answered. "Ugh, Pikachu, it's no good," Ash said as he ran to pick up his Pokemon to get him away from the battle. Ash knew he couldn't send out Pidgeotto since it was still weak from being caught and needed time to rest. He certainly couldn't use Caterpie against these guys. He would have to leave it up to Serena and Misty. 1 down, 2 to go. Jessie smirked. "Coughing! Use Sludge Attack on that Staryu!" James ordered again, the Pokemon obeying its command. "We aren't going to fall for that one," Misty stated. "Staryu, get out of the way and use Water Gun on the sludge to dissolve it." Staryu immediately spun out of the way and used the Water Gun on the grime. It was blasted downward onto the ground where it soon dissolved. "Charla, use Ember Attack," Serena called out. "Ekans, dig underground!" Jessie ordered as Ekans immediately began to burrow in the ground, completely dodging the attack. It then went into the hole it created with Coughing following it. "Be careful, Charla! They can come up anywhere!" Serena warned. Charla nodded and began to listen around for the 2 Pokemon. It soon felt some movement right beneath its feet and jumped out of the way. Ekans and Coughing soon emerged out of the ground. Charla had managed to avoid most of the attack, but the force still knocked it to its back. Ekans and Coughing were now just in front of Charla. They both reared back and prepared the strike. "Use Ember! Quick, Charla!" Serena said hurriedly. "Quick, Staryu! Water Gun both Ekans and Coughing!" Misty called. Staryu sent a gush of water out of its top end. The force of the water knocked not only Ekans and Coughing out of the way, it also gave Charla enough time to shoot its Ember attack. The Ember soared in the air and struck Ekans and Coughing, both of them yelling in pain. "Thanks for bailing me out, Misty," Serena said gratefully. "No problem," Misty replied before turning back to the battle. "That Staryu is getting really annoying. Let's attack it together, James," Jessie suggested, receiving a nod from her partner. "Coughing, use Sludge Attack again," James ordered. "That won't work this time either," Misty said. "Staryu, use Water Gun on the sludge again." Staryu obeyed and began to spray the sludge. It wasn't counting on Ekans and Coughing to charge at it while it was busy. The sludge attack must have been a decoy. Serena saw this and ordered Charla to rush in and do an Ember attack, but it was too late. Ekans and Coughing both rammed in the Staryu, knocking it onto the ground in pain. The Ember soared through the air and struck the 2 Pokemon again. "Charla, run up to Ekans and use Scratch," Serena said. Charla ran up to do the attack to Ekans, but was knocked away by its tail. Its attention then shifted back to Staryu, which was still struggling to get up. "Come on, Staryu, get up," Misty urged. "Hurry, Ekans, use Poison Sting," Jessie called. "Use Sludge, Coughing," James said. Both Pokemon obeyed and launched their respective attacks. Staryu was unable to get up in time and was struck by both attacks. It finally slumped in defeat, its red jewel blinking. "Oh no, Staryu, return!" Misty said as she returned Staryu to its Pokeball. She then looked at the Pokeball sadly. "You fought great, Staryu," she told it. "That's 2 down," James smirked. "All that's left is that Charmander. Our prize for winning this battle shall be all of your Pokemon." Ash, Serena, and Misty grimaced at the situation. They didn't think Charla would be able to take on both Ekans and Coughing due to its lack of experience. Pikachu began the struggle in Ash's arms. It wanted to fight too. Ash held it back though. "I know you want to help fight, Pikachu, but you can't in your current condition," he told it. "We'll tell you what," Meowth began. "Go ahead and hand over all the Pokemon right now, and we might let you go without any injuries." "Never. Charla and I will keep fighting until the end," Serena shouted. "Foolish girl, you can't take us both on," Jessie sneered. Ash gritted his teeth. Pikachu and Pidgeotto were in no condition to fight. His only other option was Caterpie. It was extremely risky, but he decided to believe in the strength of his Pokemon. "Caterpie, I choose you!" Ash yelled as he threw his Pokeball and released Caterpie. "You're going to use Caterpie, Ash? You can't be serious," Misty exclaimed. "There aren't any options left. I'm not letting Serena take on these crooks alone. I believe in my Pokemon," Ash said firmly. Serena was wondering about Ash's decision too, but decided to trust his judgment. "All right, Ash, let's do it," she said, giving him a smile. Team Rocket, on the other hand, began laughing. "You're actually serious," James laughed. That measly bug won't make a difference. Jessie likewise laughed. It's not even worth battling, Meowth said in a fit giggle. Ash blushed in embarrassment, but quickly shook it off. We'll show them, Caterpie. Let's get 'em, he said. Well, if you insist. Ekans, go get your dinner, Jessie shouted. Ekans obeyed its trainer and lunged forward straight at Caterpie with its mouth wide open. Quick, Charla, use Ember on Ekans, Serena called. Charla began to launch Ember, but was quickly tackled by Coughing before it could launch the attack. Caterpie stood frozen in fear as Ekans got closer and closer. Ash didn't know what to do. He should have known this was a bad idea. Misty had warned him about making rash decisions, and now he was about to lose his Pokemon because of his poor judgment. Ash gritted his teeth and began to quiver. No, not Caterpie, he thought. He then closed his eyes. He couldn't bear to watch what was about to happen. There's no way Caterpie could get out of the way in time. Ash, remember what you told me. Never give up until the end, Serena shouted. Ash heard those words and opened his eyes. Wait, what was wrong with him? He was going to be a Pokemon master. He's not going to cower in fear every single time his Pokemon are in danger. He and his Pokemon are a team. He will never abandon his Pokemon like this. If there was even a chance he could win, he was going to take it. Caterpie, use your string shot! Ash hollered with determination. Caterpie shook out of its fear once its trainer gave a command. It then summoned the courage within itself and launched a string shot right at Ekans' face. The string connected and immediately began to wrap around Ekans' upper half. Ekans halted its attack as it began the struggle to get the sticky string off of it. Pretty soon, its entire head was covered and could no longer see to attack. Are you kidding me? Jessie exclaimed in amazement that her snake was beaten by a caterpillar. I'll take care of it, Jessie, James said. Coughing, use tackle. Not so fast. Charla, use Ember again, Serena said. Serena noticed that Charla shot its embers from its mouth at a much faster rate than what it had been doing. It must be gaining experience. The embers soared through the air and struck Coughing, halting its attack. Thanks, Serena. Now Caterpie, use string shot on Coughing, Ash said. Caterpie then launched its string shot again. Coughing was still slightly dazed from the fast-shooting embers, so it couldn't dodge in time. It soon also began to be covered. Soon enough, its entire body was covered and it fell to the ground in defeat. Coughing! I can't believe it! James cried in disbelief. Meowth! Let's see you handle me! Fury swipes! Meowth shouted. Caterpie launched another string shot at Meowth, and it was soon covered also and unable to move. This is ridiculous. We better blast off all we can. Jessie shouted as she and James returned their Pokemon to their Pokeballs. This is the second time you twerps have humiliated us. You three are now enemies of Team Rocket. We'll retreat for now, but you better hope you never cross our paths again or else, James threatened. Jessie and James then picked up Meowth and began to run in the opposite direction from the group, but then stopped. Didn't the girl say the closest exit out of here was the other way? They wondered aloud. Team Rocket then U-turned and ran past the group as fast as they could and soon disappeared from view. As the group watched them go, Ash and Serena couldn't help but be amazed. They had won their first Pokemon battle fair and square. On top of that, they defended their Pokemon from being stolen. Needless to say, they were feeling pretty pleased. We did it, Ash said in surprise, turning to Serena. We actually did it! His face then broke into a big smile. We did, didn't we? Serena replied. I couldn't have done it without you, Serena. You reminded me to never give up until the end, Ash praised. Yeah, well. Serena trailed while blushing. Finally, unable to contain their excitement any longer, Ash and Serena gave each other a great big hug, their Pokemon coming over to join them. You two did very well, Misty said while smiling. If you just keep a cool head the entire time and don't panic when your Pokemon are in danger, you can pull through. You're right. Ash nodded as he and Serena released each other from the hug. He then turned to Caterpie and picked it up. You were great, Caterpie. He then began to stroke its head. You too, Charla. Serena said as she stroked her Pokemon's head as well. Ash then turned to Misty. Hey, Misty, why don't you pet Caterpie as well and tell it what a great job it did? He then held out Caterpie in front of Misty. Misty recoiled but then sighed. I guess I should. She then slowly reached out her hand. She did this once, and she could do it again. Caterpie isn't going to do anything, she thought. Just before her hand reached Caterpie, it unleashed a string shot attack almost right in Misty's face. Misty screamed. Ash, however, noticed something different about this string shot. Caterpie seemed to be doing it to itself. Caterpie? He asked in confusion as he set it on the ground. The string shot continued to cover Caterpie. At last, when several layers were formed, the string glowed green and then turned into what seemed to be a cocoon with eyes. Whoa, Caterpie! You evolved into a Metapod! Ash exclaimed happily. He then pulled out his Pokedex to scan it. Metapod, Caterpie's next stage. Its shell is as hard as an iron slab. A Metapod does not move very much because it is preparing its soft innards for evolution inside the shell, the Pokedex's monotone voice said. This is so great, Ash! Congratulations, Serena said. Thanks, Serena. Isn't that great, Caterpie? I mean Metapod? You're one step closer to becoming a Butterfree, Ash told Metapod. Pikachu and Charla went over to Metapod to congratulate it also. They still remembered the conversation they had last night and told Metapod that this proved that it could still make its dream come true. Metapod didn't say anything in response, but wiggled a little bit to show it agreed. Haha, don't feel like saying much, do ya? Ash laughed. He then picked up Metapod and showed it to Misty again. Don't forget, Misty. Go ahead and congratulate Metapod. I'll do anything. Let's just get out of this forest, she yelled. No way. There is still a lot more Pokemon to catch, Ash stated. Let's go, guys. He then ran off while still holding Metapod, his Pikachu following him. Wait up, Ash! Serena called as she and Charla followed. Don't leave me here by myself, Misty yelled as she ran to catch up.